for Wednesday, June 2, 2021. Fred,
Yes.
are you on, we recording?
Yes, we're recording.
Fred done it?
Can you hear me?
But we don't hear him. Oh,
Can you hear me, guys?
microphone's on. Jim Millard, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you, Eric. Good evening.
Is your volume up? Maybe turned down?
What the fuck? Let me see.
Down the lower right hand corner.
All right. Hey, can everybody hear me?
Yes, Eric.
Great, thank you. Hey, Fred, are we recording?
Yes, we're recording.
Appreciate it, thank you. Old business, EPC 12-2021, Cristina Pacione, 40 Morley Lane, proposing a pool in an upland review area. The site is shown on assessor's map number 63 as lot number 57. Rich?
We've requested more time.
Okay, so we will not be dealing with that tonight. EPC 21-2021, Oliver Wilson, 670 Hollow Tree Ridge Road, proposing restoration of an upland review area. The site is shown on assessor's map number 70 as lot number 50. Everybody has a draft, and I hope that everybody got Jim Millard's edits.
I have comments from Jim.
Yes, and so that was distributed out. Are there any questions or comments from commission members? No? Okay, good. Jim, may I have a motion to approve this draft?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased to make a motion to approve the make a motion to approve the conditional approval with its corrections for EPC 21-2021 regarding 670 Hollow Tree Ridge Road.
Thank you. Susan, may I have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Without objection, so moved. The next one is EPC 22-2021, Cynthia Heck, 57 Greenleaf Avenue, proposing filling and grading related to a pool in an upland review area. The site is shown on assessor's map number 28 as lot number 3. The commission members have received the conditional approval draft, the draft of the conditional approval. I hope everybody's gotten Jim Millard's edit changes. Does anybody else have anything else that they would like to add?
Eric, I'd like to, because only just as we were waiting to prepare for this meeting, I discovered, and Rich will see it there, on page 1, property address of the proposed activity reads 57 Greenwood Avenue, and that's an additional comment. It's Greenleaf Avenue.
Right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Never failed to disappoint.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Well, that's a good one. Okay. Anybody else have anything? Okay, Jim, can you make a motion to approve this?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the conditional approval with its attendant corrections for EPC application number 22-2021 regarding 57 Greenleaf Avenue.
Great, thank you very much. Susan, may I have a second?
I second the motion.
Great, then without objection, so moved. Moving on to new business. Paul and Sally Hughes, 42 Goodwise River Road, proposing a conservation easement land swap. Is there someone representing the applicant?
This is Patricia Gill, Gill & Gill Architects. We're the architect, and Homeowner Paul Hughes is also on.
Mhm.
Apologies in advance. My wife actually gave birth to our twin son and daughter about a week and a half early, so I'm in the Stanford hospital. This might be a first for the EPC, so I apologize. So I actually have to wear the mask on this. I'm not. So, and if you hear anything in the background, I apologize in advance.
Anything better?
Mother, daughter, and baby boy are all healthy, so we're all good.
Great. That's good news. Good. Any congratulations from us.
Thank you.
Please, Patricia.
So Patsy, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Okay. So this application is to request a land swap because there's a large portion of this property that's in conservation and other easements. So it really limits the amount of usable land, and the house has no garage. They're hoping to build a 2-car garage. And the only place that was not in an easement area and also not in a setback area happens to be a very steep slope, heavily bouldered kind of spot, which is part of the natural landscape of the property. So we didn't want to disturb that. So in order to save that and put the garage on a relatively flat area closer to the driveway, we requested to use some of that conservation easement and then in turn sign over a slightly larger area to the conservation easement.
And I think I would add there, thanks Patsy, that was fantastic. I mean, the area that we're swapping, or the slightly larger area that we're proposing for the land swap, is actually the part of the property that is downward sloping and faces into the watershed, into Good Wives River, and it also has the frontage to the public road. The part where we are planning on building the garage is on the other side of the house that's not visible from the main street. And it's obviously there, it makes most sense from a practical standpoint, from a family living perspective, and without disturbing the natural topography of the land. So that's the little addition that I would add there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Commission members, I'm sure you've walked the property. I'd like to hear your questions or comments for the applicant. Bill, can I start with you?
Yeah, I walked it. No, I think it's okay. I am, first time I've seen conservation easement that is lawn. So it's, that's a whole nother topic, but what they're doing looks okay to me.
So the language of that particular easement, if you read it, does allow for lawn. That's what it was when it was created. So
Right. I'm just curious why it was created that way. And
I don't know.
yeah, I know it was 98. And that's something we can discuss offline, but it seems like, I'm not sure if this is a property tax issue or how that works out, but it's interesting. But in this case, I don't see any problem with it.
Well, my suggestion is that the conservation easement was probably drawn up during the subdivision of the property.
Right.
And since it was over 3 acres, they had to do something. And so open space conservation easement. So that, I think, is where that was developed. So,
Okay.
and to minimize driveways, et cetera, was probably, I'm speculating, but I believe in order to minimize driveways, et cetera, they created that. So,
Okay.
okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Mackenzie, are you on?
Yes, I'm here. Thanks, Eric. I'm okay with this. It's not, I don't think it's a significant area, significant size.
Yep. Okay. Michael Urban? Michael?
I'm okay.
You're okay with this? Jim?
I will admit to the assembled experts that I spent a bunch of time looking at this, trying to understand it well. I was out to the site and I tried to look at the various survey and plans that I imagine Patricia Gill prepared for the family. And I struggled with this one to try and understand what was actually being or attempting to be or what is being proposed. It's not that I've come out on a different side than my fellow commissioners. It just, I found it, having done having been involved, I should say, with several conservation easements in my years on the Darien Land Trust, and certainly on this fine commission, I just found it a real one that required a sincere level of concentration to understand what was actually being requested. I know it's a challenging site, and to the father of these new babies would try and figure out a way to see that this can work, protect them from the Goodwives River, please. It's your responsibility. So I don't think I'm finding any fault with what I'm reading. I just found it just a hard one to comprehend, probably something that the Hughes family has been trying to make sense of for some time, I imagine.
Yep. I have a question.
Go ahead.
I have a question here, which is, obviously to change the conservation easement, you need a lawyer to get involved to nullify this one and propose the next one. Do you have somebody in mind yet or no?
Patsy.
It's my question to the applicant, yeah.
Oh, for a land use attorney to draw it up?
Yeah, because obviously the piece we saw here came from the land records, volume 879,
Right.
page 90.
Right.
That came from the land records and that has to be redrafted, right, Rich, by
Yeah, it'll have to be changed to reference the new map that Seymour is proposing too. Yeah.
yes.
I did have a chat with Wilder Gleason about it. So he may be the one.
I
to
believe
handle-
Wilder represented the subdivider
Oh, way back when?
way back when, yeah.
Okay, well, whatever, it needs to, the conservation easement, because I sort of get a sense of the commission that the commission agrees with the change. But from a technical perspective, as of today, this is on the land, whatever we have here is from the land records, and this has to be legally rescinded and the new conservation easement legally approved. Okay, this conservation commission, which is what we're constituted for this one right now, is an important step, but it's the legal step that must be taken next.
Okay.
Get that done. So,
Well, that step is P and Z to also need to approve.
because for grading and filling and stuff.
No, for the release of the easement.
Okay.
Because it's a change in the subdivision.
It's a change in the subdivision. Okay.
So it goes, you're the grantee of the easement. So
Yeah.
Your permission and then P and Z's permission.
So the next stop is P and Z, right?
Yeah.
And then after that would be the,
Would be filing the new map and new language. Yeah.
okay. Mr. Hughes, you have that?
Yes. So just to confirm steps. So after this meeting, we go to the P&Z for the committee, or is there an application there?
I believe they're going to treat it as just a request, the way GPC is doing it tonight, a request to modify the easement or I'm not sure.
What you need to call Jeremy?
Well, Jeremy's talked about it. I think they're going to just put it on the agenda as a simple request to modify the subdivision.
Yeah, I don't think you need it as a separate application. I think you just, follow up with Jeremy Ginsburg to the town hall employee to make sure that it gets on P&Z's agenda, make sure that they will approve it.
And then the last step you're saying is to make sure that they engage with outside counsel to resubmit new revised documentation for the land records.
Right. Your attorney will submit a revised document and it's a matter of, we refer to the town attorney just as a matter of, we refer all of them. And sometimes they go back and forth, or sometimes it's not a difficult process. But then the easement and the map get filed on the land records.
Okay.
And then it becomes official. Okay, then at that point,
And then you can
at
go
that point, it
ahead
becomes legally binding that you can go build what you want to build without, and it just becomes another normal piece of property that you own, and you can modify with what Gil has suggested here.
Okay, great.
So,
I appreciate that.
but I just wanted to make sure that you knew the next steps, that this is not, this is an important, because we are the Conservation Commission and conservator of all conservation easements in the town of Darien. And it's a very important step, okay, because if we did not approve it, it would not go on. Okay, but I just wanted to point out to you, because some people aren't familiar with the process.
Mhm.
To understand that the next step is P&Z, and that should get on there, and you can follow the P&Z's agenda there. They can notify you as to when.
That could be as soon as next week or the following week.
Yeah, no, I don't think, yeah, I agree with that. That, either next week or the following week, hopefully it can get on there, so you can get their formal approval. At that point, we need, and then you would, go to, the land attorney of your choice to rewrite what is written in the land records, so that when you sell this property, the land records are properly, appropriately reflected. Because if they're not, you've built a garage on conservation easement, and that would make it very difficult to sell your property.
All right,
Okay.
understood. I appreciate it.
Okay,
And thank you,
and so I just wanted to walk you through that process.
And Chairman, thank you very much for that, and I appreciate everyone's time. Just to clarify, that last step, which actually is a little new to me, I didn't realize that last step.
Yep.
Is that typically a lengthy process in this case, or is this a simple modification?
No, it's up to.
It's up to your lawyer.
Yeah, it's up to however long it takes them to prepare the document.
Okay.
That shouldn't be difficult, and then.
No, it's a question of, this is not unusual. This is not unusual to do. He should have done it. Wilders, I'm sure, has done, several of these in his career, right? And then he goes to the town attorney. Town attorney's got to make sure the town interests are legally protected. I mean, that's a normal step. And then you sign it, I sign it, and it's a done deal. Then it's a matter of the land records, and it's officially.
You have to
And
sign
so there's no subsequent application or meeting like this to go through approval at that point.
They may, no, after, once the attorneys get involved and you and I sign it, it's a legal document.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Then we just start the whole permit process. This is all preliminary to the permit process.
Then it just becomes a normal part of your land that you can, you do with, as you choose.
Okay.
Okay.
Understood.
So then, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
This is to clear up the conservation easement here for you.
Understood.
Okay,
Thanks.
now, we need a vote on this, Rich?
I would, yeah.
Okay. Okay, Jim, I need a proposal to approve the conservation easement switch here.
I'd be happy to do that, Mr. Chairman. I am pleased to make a motion that this commission approve this step in the Hughes family's application for revising, I think maybe a better word is substituting the existing conservation easement to allow them to do some improvements to the property with a substitute conservation easement guided by good counsel and subject to the approval of all town boards and commissions.
Okay, Susan, may I have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, without objection from the commission members, so approved. Thank you very much, Mr. Hughes. Best
Thank
of
you.
luck.
I'm gonna drop
Best
if that's
of-
okay with everyone.
Yeah, best of luck getting sleep.
Thank you very much. All right, be well.
Yeah, thank you, you too. Okay, the next item of new business is EPC 33, 2015. Michael Nicholas, 4 Silver Lakes Drive, requesting site plan amendment for grading activity in an upland review area. Representing the applicant is,
Yes, good evening, Dean Martin with Grumman Engineering. I'm representing the applicant, Michael Nicholas. This is as stated, it's a application for amendment for grading at 4 Silver Lakes Drive. The reason we're here tonight is this property was previously approved for a building, as a building site with a house plan back in 2016. And the grading around the house was going to be below the flood elevation, which at this location is elevation 41.7, which would require the owner to have flood insurance for his property, for his house. What we're proposing to do at this time is to raise the grade surrounding the dwelling and the garage and the rear patio, so that the property, or so that the dwelling would be outside of the 100-year flood elevation. What we've done is added a retaining wall along the northern side of the property, 3 feet off the face of the house, or the actual face of the retaining wall is 4 feet off the face of the house. And the retaining wall then circles down and encompasses the patio on the west or eastern side of the property, and then some regrading to get up to that, above that flood elevation. In addition, there's some stormwater retention, which is on the property, as you'll see, adjacent to Silver Lakes Drive. Now, the result of or the change from this plan to the previously approved plans is due to the retaining wall and raised elevation around the house, is a loss of flood storage on this property compared to what was previously approved. And in my information that was supplied, the amount of flood storage loss is approximately 7,886 cubic feet. So what I did was and that was based on doing cross sections through the property with the proposed grading that we've provided. What I did was I looked at the overall area, which comprises that flood elevation of 41.7, and came up with a area of 740,000 square feet, just to see what the effect is going to be on our loss of flood storage within the 100-year flood area. And based on my analysis, over that 740,000 square feet, the raise in water surface elevation is 0.0106 feet, approximately an eighth of an inch, which we feel is in a 100-year storm event is insignificant. That's essentially what we're looking for. As I said, regrading. One note, as I mentioned, there's a stormwater retention system, and that's designed based on the normal 50-year design storm. And with the system we have proposed, the 50-year runoff will be actually reduced on the property from 1.37 to 1.34 CFS. So in the normal or the 50-year storm and below, there will be a loss a lessen in runoff from the property into that wetland area to the north. That's it, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Bill, can I start with you?
I looked it over and I'm okay with it.
Okay. Michael Irvin?
I have no questions.
No questions. Susan?
Was the retaining wall, was that approved with the initial application?
No, the retaining wall is new. There was grading around the house, but there was no retaining wall.
All right, and so the loss in storage is due to the fill that you need because of the new retaining wall.
Correct.
All right. All right, thank you, Eric.
Okay, Jim?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I remember this original application, I remember being surprised
Mhm.
that there was a suggestion that this parcel coming off of Tokenique Road down Silver Lakes Drive, excuse me, could accommodate the potential for 2 homes. So roll the camera forward, and we are here tonight with Mr. Martin. And I know the new home right there adjacent to Tokenique Road is there and in place. Is Mr. Nicholas the owner of that home, or is he the developer of the site that was hoping at one time to build 2 homes? I'm a little lost there, if you can help me.
Yes, he's the owner. He actually lives at that property, number 2, Silver Lakes Drive.
And was he the original developer, or he purchased it from the developer?
I believe he was the original developer.
And so does he still own the adjacent property to the left of the home?
Yes.
I think that must be, I don't know, is that north? I forget.
Yes, number 2, he owns number 2 as well. That's his residence.
So his residence adjoins Tokenique Road and the corner of Silver Lakes Drive, and then he owns this other parcel that at one time was being thought of for a approval for a building of a second home. Is that right?
Correct.
I guess my question is, and I'm not sure why I've taken an interest in this. I go down there often for whatever reason, and I was there not yesterday, but the day before. And in our very capable Rich Jacobson's notes to us to prepare for this meeting, it talks about the property is being maintained in its original state as a wetland. That property is a mess. I say that with due respect. There's a falling down silt fence. I think it's called a silt fence that's falling in on itself. There's a pile of rocks in the back. It's being maintained in a natural vegetative state. I'd love to meet you there tomorrow and talk that through, because that's not what I'm seeing.
And I was referring to the easement, which is, the easement area is being maintained well. I granted the second lot is.
It's a mess.
Disturbed, but it's disturbed, but the easement itself is around the pond is well maintained.
As well,
They did a lot of plantings around the little pond there, yeah.
and please, Mr. Chairman, stop me if I'm overstepping my bounds here, but I guess I'm just curious. I hope I don't say this improperly. I'm glad I don't own the home across the street and look across at that to be developed lot, which is quite casual. It's not a beautiful adjacent to a small pond, get ready to build home. It's got falling down silt fence, as I mentioned, and piles of rocks. And is something intended with that land adjacent to Mr. Nicholas's residence? Do we know?
Mr. Martin?
I'm not sure where you're referring to, which this is the property to it.
Hey, Jim, let me help here, okay? 2 Silver Lakes is where the applicant, Mr. Nicholas, lives. The property next to him is the adjacent lot is a lot he owns and was approved in 2015 for development. What I think he's trying to do with this application, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Martin, Mr. Nicholas, is the original house that was conceived in 2015 was going to be a different grade. What they want to do is put a retaining wall in there to raise up the house to a foot, to raise it up, so with the retaining wall there, so that it's a little higher and there's less chance of flooding. Rich, is that a fair?
That's correct. And the area that's, Jim's right, it's being maintained. That is a construction site.
It's a construction site. I mean, it's,
obviously the silt fence can be easily put back in place.
no, well, if
Everything-
he's going to construct, once he starts construction, that silt fence will not pass building office approval. I mean, I'm stating the obvious. And so, once he gets going, he's going to have to establish the whole building area and get, but he has it was 2015 when this application came through. So that, I think, is the issue. That he's let it go for 5 years. That's another story, Jim. I agree with you. As if I was the adjacent neighbor, it's not something nice to look out to. But I think in this case, what the applicant has decided to do is to activate this so he can, because he legally can build it according to the specifications in his 2015 application. And what he wants to do is modify that application so that he can put a retaining wall in.
Correct, and building the original plan is still feasible, but it requires construction in below, or I guess, flood vents and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
This gets it out of the flood zone and better for the future home. That's really the main difference. It just raises things up.
No, hey, Jim. Hey, Jim. No, I too remember this application well, and was I think, if I recall correctly, that I voted against it because it had flood vents that would flood the that would go into the basement. And you have water, casual water into the basement, et cetera, et cetera. This, according to Mr. Martin, is going to take the raising of this is going to take care of that. Okay, so it will be out of the flood zone. Is that correct, Mr. Martin?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so I think that takes care of it because I now kind of remember 6 years ago when we saw this application, seeing pictures of a flood vent which would let water in. Okay, and you and I were looking, because I remember that now. You and I remember my own incredulity at the situation, but I think, quite in my personal opinion, this is a better solution to this, and by putting the retaining wall in, because I don't think it's I don't think it certainly doesn't affect the wetlands, and it creates a nicer house. Let's put it this way: I wouldn't buy a house that had water vents coming in underneath it, Jim, and this, I think, avoids that.
I apologize to everybody's time that is participating in this commission and this hearing. And I have the plan open that that Grumman Engineering prepared, I believe, Mr. Martin's firm. So I appreciate the thoroughness of your answers. Could I try and close off my thoughts or observations? What you're proposing to do for number 4 Silver Lakes Drive, Mr. Nicholas's home, looks to me to be more than fine, and therefore, as I said earlier, maybe I'm overstepping my bounds as it relates to this particular application for this particular hearing tonight. But if you'll allow, as I look to the north, the property that adjoins the small lake, is that a building site? Is there a plan to be able to build a home on that little, that smaller area? Is that possible, or am I missing something?
Well, that's one. No, the plan before you is for number 4. That is the plan before you. That's what we're proposing, which is adjacent to, or just to the south of the pond. That's the lot. That's the 0.8 acre lot,
Okay.
which includes the wetland and the pond.
And by doing so, that now you can see I really am lost. And by doing so and correcting the floodplain issues we're discussing, that would bring that plot, admittedly, I think it's not so greatly maintained today, in conformance, compliance with the ability to build a home on that site?
Yes, well, it's already approved for a home, as a home site.
I know that. I was on the commission when we
And
approved
so
it.
all we're doing is we're raising it up so that we eliminate the issues with flood vents. We're getting it above the flood elevation. The previous approved plan, the land surrounding the house was below the flood level.
All
What
right,
we're
so-
proposing to do now is to raise it up so that the house and the area immediately surrounding the dwelling is above the flood elevation.
Thank you for putting up with me. I apologize for being so dense.
Anything else,
Can I ask
Jim?
can I ask one question to Rich? There's, the only easement there is a sewer easement, not a conservation easement, right? Because you mentioned conservation easement when you sent us some notes, but that's a sewer easement. Is that right?
No, the conservation easement.
It is? Well, okay, because it's written on the map only as a sewer easement.
The conservation easement is on the survey. I
It
don't,
is?
you're right, I didn't see it on the site plan, but
Yeah,
it is on the survey.
okay, well, that's something that ought to be on the site plan, not to be picky, but we ought to be seeing that.
Good evening. This is Michael Nicholas. I'm the applicant. I just thought it would be helpful. There are two easements, and they are not overlapping one into another. So you both are correct. There is a conservation easement, and there is a sewer easement in favor of a neighbor.
Any reason why it's not on the site plan, the conservation easement?
No, it was just, it wasn't on the survey that I received, so it didn't get put onto the site plan. We certainly can add that on.
It's a good thing to have. Thanks.
Yeah, that's a good thing to have. Okay, so Mr. Martin, you'll submit a revised, excuse me, revised site plan with the conservation easement to Rich?
Yes, I will submit that to staff.
Okay, Rich, when you get that, I'd appreciate if you could send that out to the commission members, because I'd like to see that also. And then, assuming we're okay with that, then we can write stuff up, but that'll be a conversation. That'll be a conversation over the conservation easement. Is that fair enough? Okay. Moving on. EPC 25-2021, Brandon and Megan Cobalt, 54 Gardner Street, proposing a replacement house and related construction in a review area. The site is shown on assessor's map number 45 as lot number 121. Rich, I think you suggested that this should go to
Yes.
go to public hearing because it's a replacement house. Okay. Do the other commission members agree? Because typical policy is to get a if it's a replacement house, and that we see it in a public hearing so the neighbors have an opportunity to comment on it. Okay, Jim, you want to propose a public hearing?
Yes, I'm happy to do that, Eric, and I think it's wise that we urge the commission tonight to move EPC 25-2021 regarding 54 Gardner Street to a public hearing for future consideration.
Okay, great, thank you. Susan, have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, without objection, so moved. In the meantime, maybe what we should do is have, I guess it's represented by Doug DeVesta Civil Engineering, to walk us through there to see what we have for our initial comments.
Sure.
Thank you,
Brett, can I get the screen, please?
Yeah, one moment, Doug.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, for the record, Doug DeVesta, represent the applicant. Up on the screen right now, we've got the existing conditions survey. The property is located on the north and east corner of Gardner Street and Coach Lamp Lane. The properties are probably a little 0.67 acres, located in the R3 zone. The existing house, which is hashed, cross-hashed right here, was constructed in 1922. According to the assessor's card, the property was checked for wetlands, which is located along the easterly portion of the property. Approximately 10,000, almost 11,000 square feet of wetlands. There is a drainage ditch that bisects it to a point where there's an existing 18-inch RCP, a reinforced concrete pipe, where the ditch goes into a catch basin on Lamp Coach Lane, and then continues down to the drain with the town drainage system. Our proposal is to raise the existing house and to construct a new house in some of the general location of the existing residence, which is highlighted right here. Also, we would be pushing the house further back from the road to make it compliant. Right now, the house is over the front yard setback, so it's not compliant with planning and with zoning regulations. This dashed line, what I'm highlighting here, is the building setback line, so the house will be slid back behind that line to make it compliant with zoning. The property slopes from Gardner Street towards the east, towards the drainage ditch, and then drains out of the property. We are proposing a detention system, which will collect the runoff from the roof area, the proposed driveway with a trench drain, and then some lawn area that will be draining onto the driveway. We're also providing the water quality volume, which would be the first inch of runoff from the impervious surfaces from the house, driveway, and portion of the walk below the invert of the outlet pipe for the detention system. The house currently is connected to a sanitary sewer, and it will be reconnected back into the sanitary sewer, which is a manhole located on the south and east corner of the property that drains into the town drainage sewer system. The current house is connected to the municipal water, and the proposed house will be also connected to the municipal water. In terms of erosion control, we're providing silk fence along the northern property line, along the adjacent to the wetlands line, and out towards Coach Lamp Lane. The silk fence along the wetlands line will be considered. We'll use that as a super silk fence. What that's meaning is we'll back it up. We'll back the silk fence up with a wooden snow fence. Same thing, sort of similar with what we did over on Valley Forge Road, which you saw about a year, almost 2 years ago now. Any tracking pad will be located at the construction's entrance and on the new driveway coming into the site. The heavy red line here is the 50-foot upland review area, so you can see a good portion of the house and the rear yard are all in the upland review area. So that's just a general overview of the project. I'd be glad to answer any questions, or just take them down and be able to respond back to them during the public hearing.
You going through the list, or do you want me to chime in? Okay. Go through the list. I don't have to be first. Go ahead, Eric. Are you muted? Maybe you're muted. All right, I'll just start. Go
ahead.
Okay. So my question is, it was running pretty freely, the drainage ditch, during this last rain. And that ends up into the storm sewer right into Holly Pond. So that's one of my concerns, is what you're going to do to try to prevent or bring back, takes out some of that lawn, make that a little more potential for holding back runoff, fertilizer, whatever. You got any plans for that?
Yes, we do. Jim McManus is our soil scientist and environmentalist. He will be preparing a report on the function of these wetlands, which is mostly a lawn area. And we are looking to propose a buffer area on both sides of the water, of the drainage ditch. And also provide and to clean out by hand the inlet of the drainage pipe in the area where it ties into that 18-inch RCP. We've talked to some of the neighbors, and they said during very heavy rainstorms, this backs up and floods out towards the neighbor's property to the east there. So again, we are looking to provide some kind of a buffer area along the drainage ditch.
Do you ever have like a sump clean out? I mean, it's a little different than in a storm drain, but all the leaves come down in the fall. They all go through there. They all go down and end up unfortunately, in an inlet that I'm residing near. Any way you can make some kind of a sump that would catch some of that and have a clean out procedure?
We can look into that, but we'll be working within the wetlands area, because we'd have to do it at the inlet of the pipe, and right now that inlet of the pipe is pretty well.
Well, if you get underneath those, if you go underneath those bushes, there's already a sump somewhat under there now, just the way the rocks are laid out. So it actually is already pre-existing to some degree. But take a look at it. That's all I can ask.
Okay.
Thanks.
Michael Urban?
I'm actually curious about this area of town. I used to live around the corner, and an architect who does quite a bit of work here in Darien, that'd be probably recognizable by name, lives one street over on Relihan. And just from my experience living in this neighborhood, these lots are very wet. I think in their early development, someone could correct me or share. I'd be interested just to learn about this area. I believe this was swampland, and it was just filled with as these houses were being developed. So anecdotally, a neighbor to this property can open their cellar door to their half basement and have a lake underneath their first floor. It just fills up with water. Much of the lawns in these neighborhoods are overflowing with water in large storm events. So I guess my first question is this a wetland, or is this a man-made wetland? And this is a unique lot. It's one of the larger lots in this area. Is this wetland area, is it really just a depression of land that's become wet over time? Or is it wet because of the topography? I don't know the compass direction, but from Stanton, the water sheet flowing down from the hill onto this lot. It'll be an interesting. I would offer conjecture that the sump pumps are going to be running quite a bit on this new construction property. So maybe someone could just speak to the type of wetland that this lot is on.
Michael, we'll have at the public hearing, we'll have Jim McManus discuss the wetlands, what type of wetlands they are, how much wetlands are out there. As you can see, we've got that area flagged out, and he'll be able to answer a lot of those questions. If it was a swampland, was it was a filled wetlands over a period of time or not. Basically, when I did my soil testing out there, we found that groundwater in test hole number 2 was 44 inches down. So it's fairly deep in that area where the house is going. It is an upland area, but again, we'll have Jim McManus discuss that in more detail at the public hearing.
Yeah, I guess another just general thought is if this is truly a wetland, and then there's quite a bit of wetland in this neighborhood, and I guess the question for Rich and the group, I don't know if it's germane to the wetlands capacity. After this house is developed, I think this is a pretty good case study as to what happens to the neighbors, because the area is so wet. I appreciate, Rick, Doug, that you just said you dug a perk hole of 44 inches and it's relatively dry. But this is a pretty swampy area. All right, I'll just leave it at that.
Well, looks like we'll have an extensive presentation by the landscaping engineer there. So, okay, Susan, do you have any questions?
Not at this time. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. Jim?
Same as Susan, Eric. I have no questions for tonight. I might have when we see this application at the public hearing next month.
Super. Doug, I have one. How deep is is there a basement? How deep?
Yes, there's a basement. It is a standard 8-foot basement. And what we did when this house was designed by the architect on this, that we utilized the test hole number 2 to determine where the groundwater level was, and we raised the house up so the basement is outside of the groundwater level. So we did take that into consideration when they designed this house.
Okay, thank you. I'll be looking at that when the public hearing comes.
Okay.
Okay.
Just a quick question, sorry. Doug, would you ever, in the shaded lot area, the shaded wetland area, obviously soil scientist goes and flags the wetland, but you know, it probably isn't common, but just as a prudent measure, say, hey, I'm going to build my house here, and I really want to understand how, you know, how wet the wetland is. Would you put a perk hole or test a perk test into the wetland to see how wet it truly is, or by definition it's wet, so that's good enough?
Well, that's a question. That's more of a question for the soil scientist. But the soil scientist does hand augers, and they look at the soil chroma of it and the colors and the characteristics of the soils, and that's how they determine if it's considered wetlands or non-wetland soils. So the soil scientists did look at this, and based on the colors and the makeup of the soils, it determined it to be wetlands. I'm sure if we dug a test hole in there, or hand test hole, or perk test, or whatever, I'm sure we would find that groundwater levels were fairly high in that area, or at least indication of high groundwater level in that area. But again, Jim McManus, the soil scientist, would be able to, to answer that question in more depth, more than I can. I'm not a soil scientist, but he can answer that in more depth for you next week, or at the next meeting.
Thanks.
Okay. Doug, we'll see you July 7th.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. We have the public hearing now for EPC 13-2021, 4 Acres LLC, proposing a grading related to a pool and buffer restoration plantings in an upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 6 as lot number 21. We opened this last month, May 5, and continued it. Okay, is the applicant here?
Yes, we are.
Okay, Wayne. What do we have to add here to the record?
Yes, if I could share my screen, I'd just like to show you. Yeah, okay. This proposal is for a pool patio in the upland review area, which is in this section of the pool patio is the only part that is in the upland review area. Nothing's changed from the last time we met, but just to review, the pool is out of the upland review area entirely. The patio is 39 feet from the wetlands, and the pool fence is 23 feet from the wetlands. There'll be about 40 cubic yards of fill in the upland area that's required for the grading. We're providing a retention system in this area, which is completely out of the upland review area, that will mitigate the 2 through 50-year storms. And that's relative to a vacant lot, a fresh meadow approach. Several trees were removed with some discussion with the staff, and these pictures kind of show that a few of them were marked in advance of that, and they were removed over the winter. There is a landscape restoration plan done by Alexandra Bach, which is on the screen right now, which provides for several plantings in the area and into the wetlands, and she's available for any questions, and that pretty much summarizes it.
Okay, would any commission member like to speak, have questions or comments? No, I'm not muted. Bill?
Yeah, when we first talked with you all, we were kind of concerned about some kind of demarcation line on that wetland area there. And I know it was changed, so they're kind of made the fence a demarcation. You called it pool fence, which was not what I had in mind, or I'm not sure if anybody else had in mind. So I was hoping we would have seen that in this plan, that boulders or something would have gone along that wetland barrier, that wetland line there, to not allow yard creep, which seems to happen quite often. So I haven't seen that up here. I see you did take add a few more trees. It wasn't a lot more, but you did add some. But that's my biggest concern, is that I was hoping to have some permanent or even a fence if we had to along that wetland, so we don't get the yard creep.
Alexandra Mock for the record. So yes, I spoke with Richard, and he suggested that the pool fence would be an adequate demarcation. So that's what is being shown. Originally, I show boulders, but because this is going to be all the restoration is going to happen behind the pool fence, the fence will be, I believe, that adequate barrier, because there will be no reason to go behind. It's going to be pretty much vegetated and dense, so I don't see anybody walking there or mowing. But if you would like to see a different demarcation, we'll be happy to address it.
Yeah, from my perspective, a pool fence is not demarcation, and I'm worried about that wetlands. It's a nice one, and I know that that yard, when it's put in, will be right up to it or further, and I would feel much better if you had something that showed that permanently.
Can I just add, the pool fences serve two purposes. It's required by building, and it has been something we've used to demarcate conservation easements and restored areas. But if you think a boulder's an addition and the applicant's willing to do it, I'm fine with that.
Well, the pool fence is only around the pool. It's not that whole eastern that eastern wetland is not being protected. That's what I'm worried about, because they came in there, they knocked trees down. Now they haven't put the lawn in yet, but you better watch where that lawn will end up going. So, I don't feel comfortable that they're going to abide by that wetland if we don't get something in there that shows it permanently.
How about extending it from over to the existing stone wall?
It sure ought to go the whole eastern side there, because you've seen that, you've walked that land. It's a nice wetland on that side, and it's encroachment was going to happen.
Yeah.
Can we put this as a permit condition that the demarcation will touch the existing stone wall and go along the pool fence?
All the way down to the end of the property, down to the south end.
Okay.
Yeah, we get
That would
those
be
big
good.
boulders in there, yeah?
You've got plenty of boulders to work with. That lot is all full of it, so it's not like you had to buy them.
Just to be clear, we're talking about to like where the shed was or is going to be removed from here up through this area?
Yeah, the shed is gone, so that whole area is about the same elevation, and it's all prime wetlands on the east side of that. So it would be nice to keep that wetland marked there and not worry about it in the future.
Right.
For the record, I'm Sean Shea. I own the property, and I actually saved a bunch of boulders just for that reason. So I'm happy to put it in.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shea. Okay, so Rich, yeah, you'll have that. Okay. Bill, is there anything else you'd like to?
No, that's it. Thank you. I'm done. Thanks.
Any other commission member would like to speak? Okay, then I'd like to open it up to the public. Is there a member of the public that would like to speak?
Yes, Thomas Hack here.
Could you give me your name and address, sir?
Okay, the address is Thomas Hack, H-A-A-C-K. My address is 36 Knollwood Lane, Knollwood Lane, and I'm a contiguous property owner to the northeast of the 4 acres property.
Yes, sir, please. The floor is yours.
Pardon. I wanted to basically introduce myself not only as a neighbor, but because most of my comments tonight relate to the upland review area and the wetlands. I just wanted to mention that I have, for the last 15 or maybe 20 years, been chairman of a committee. We manage a 1,500 acre forest upstate with 4 miles of cold water fishing stream, river fishing. I'm very sensitive to the accepted practices for managing riparian buffers and the silviculture. And it's been part of my life for the last 15, 20 years, and I think it's very, very important. With that preface, I just wanted to offer a little bit of history on this property after the developer bought it. The house came down in probably November, and my wife and I were very surprised and very upset when in mid-December, 2 pieces of heavy machinery with steel tracks, buckets, and grapples came into this property, and over the course of 2 days, pulled out little trees, big trees, all kinds of stuff. Mr. Jacobson, I think very appropriately, gave them permission to take out the red shed and also some debris piles that were around. They went way beyond that. And there were even people in with chainsaws for a couple of days, cutting trees in the upland review area, big trees. I went out to talk to him one day, and the fellow, I was on my property line, and he said, you might want to stand back. I don't know where this tree's going to come down. So this was not a little shrub. After the loggers came in, the machinery came back with their grapples, and they pulled out all the logs and what have you. Then again in January, we saw 2 people back in the wetlands itself, working all the way over to the Herdman's property to the east, and they were either hand pruning or pulling debris out of the wetland. I don't know what it was, but they cleaned it up a lot. I think they were hand pruning and then putting it all in a big pile back on the other side of the silt fence. The issue that we had, and I'd invite you to take a walk through this upland review area, because you will see the vegetation has been completely removed right along the wetland border. You can see the orange tags. Everything has basically been cleared out. This process continued, and at a point where they were then pulling out stumps with the heavy machinery, Mr. Jacobson very appropriately came over and had them stop. You know, for those of us that were looking at this, I measured the sort of evisceration of vegetation for about 60 yards from sort of the northern border all the way to the south. And at 50 yards, 50 feet of buffer zone, 60 yards, when the whole upland review area is only 10,500 feet, we're talking about an area that's maybe been cleared, you know, 85 to 90% of its area. And when you go, you will see that this has just been totally clipped down. So our first inference was that the applicant was simply, you know, trying to expand the lawn area into the upland review area. The clear cutting to the edge of the wetlands, the machinery, the stump removal, the landscaping plan, which I think somebody alluded to, didn't have too many trees in it. Most of them are behind the pool. There's no demarcation line either along the wetland border or the line between the lawn and the upland review. My one question was, is it envisioned that the upland review area is going to be lawn, manicured lawn? That is not what I considered to be an appropriate buffer. In terms of the proposed pool, I think the applicant was fair in saying it's difficult to build the pool close to the house and out of the upland review area. I appreciate that. To some extent, that's a function of the design, because this house is a very large house and it's being built on a very small parcel of unregulated land. If this acreage is 1.22 acres, you take out 9,000 square feet for the wetlands, 10,000 feet for the upland review, you're down to about 33,600 feet of unregulated area. So it's a big house on a not big piece of property. So there is a certain amount of judgment that's going to have to go in. Furthermore, it's on a slope. So to the extent that the house was elevated a little bit, the gradients down to the buffer zone, regulated area, is going to be a little steeper than it was even when the original house was there. So I'm hoping that as we look at this, that the landscaping plan will be enhanced significantly to take into account what has been taken out. There needs to be more planting along the western border of the buffer zone, because just like you have yard creep into a wetland, you also have yard creep into a buffer zone. The other thing I wanted to point out was that the drainage report doesn't seem to jive with the rest of the application in terms of the number of acres. But I guess my fundamental question is, what kind of natural plantings are you going to be putting into this buffer zone? And how are you going to protect it in the future? One final question is, this is a little bit of an unusual situation because the applicant is either selling or has sold the house to somebody. We don't know if the future owner is going to want to even put in a pool. So in the absence of any assurance as to whether there's a pool going in or not, what is the landscaping plan? I would think it would be quite a bit different. So with that, I just leave it for your deliberation. I think we have to be very careful about the gradients that are coming off of the pool patio into the upland review. I know that in the past you have put low fences around these areas to protect them from the rest of the upland review area. And I think that's very appropriate here. And I totally appreciate any use of boulders between the upland review and the wetland. What is your view of some kind of demarcation between the upland review and the rest of the lawn. That's one of the questions I had tonight.
Okay, are you finished, Mr. Hack?
Yeah, I am. That's pretty much it. I mean, I'm real sensitive about these buffer zones because I live with them all the time. I mean, you deal with swimming pools up there. I'm dealing with beaver and farmers. So we have similar problems coming from different sources.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your extensive comments. Wayne, would you like to address them?
Yes, certainly. Again, I think the developer is open to any placement of boulders for demarcation. You should maybe clarify if you indeed want demarcation between the upland review and everything else, and the wetlands in the upland review area. It would seem to me it would be one or the other. I mean, if you're going to put trees much farther to the west to demarcate that, then I guess that would become the demarcation. I don't know that we need to do also boulders. I would think it would be the wetlands that are demarcated with boulders, and that would make the most sense. The upland review area, being largely shown as the landscape plan shows and maintained. The house, the size of the house was mentioned. I mean, that again, the house is entirely out of the upland review area. It meets zoning and has been reviewed by Public Works for stormwater runoff, which again, it is fully mitigated for the 2 through 50-year storms. And also the grading or the proposed grading for the house and the pool patio is not changing. Is not changing the drainage pattern at all. It still runs from west to east as it currently does. It's we're not altering that at all. So there's really no effect to that. And I guess that pretty much summarizes it. The area of the lot is 45,000 and change square feet. It's slightly over an acre. That's from the survey. So not quite sure what discrepancy there is there. That's what it is.
The town map shows it to be 1.22 acres, and I didn't know if they were just excluding the wetlands or not, but there's a little bit of a difference there.
Maybe they're including an act. I don't see an easement anywhere there. I mean, I would take the number from a surveyor, I think, before what might be in a town record.
That's fine. That's not a follow up on that question is, what do you envision planting in this 10,400 square foot upland review area? Is this going to be manicured lawn, or are we going to be looking at native plants with trees perhaps moved a little closer to the western border?
Perhaps Alexandra or Sean could answer that.
I'd like to just interject real quick, just to follow up on some of this misguided information. First of all, I marked those trees before I cut them. I called Rich up before I even attempted to cut them, and had a arborist come and look at. Most of those were dead ash or fallen down or split from storms, whatever. And I said, Rich, there's a neighbor over there that's going to call you because he's been feeding the deer and shooting them, and from what I've heard from the neighbors, and he's going to call you. So I want to make sure you come and look at these trees before I cut them. He came out, we cut them. I said, Rich, there's a whole bunch of dead trees in the woods. Can I go get them? Yes. I went in and got them with a small excavator that I own. This doesn't have steel tracks. The ground was frozen solid. Rich came back and said, you better go in there by hand now. The local college kid went into the wetlands area and took all the dead stuff out by hand and made 2 piles. So nobody went in there with big machines and steel tracks. This is not what happened. In fact, the arborist wanted me to cut some more dead trees, and I didn't cut them. I left them there because I just stopped the whole thing. And I saved the boulders. I'm willing to put the boulders along the wetlands buffer, as they're nice big boulders. They're there to see. and anything else that whether they put in I'm gonna sell the house. That's true. That's why I bought it. And anything I do, if I do not put the pool in, the markers will still be there along the property where the wetlands are. So anything else, I think I went beyond any expectation by contacting Rich. And I got the emails. I took the pictures before because I knew he was going to call, and here we are. So I did everything I said I was going to do, nothing else. And by the way, the stumps are still there in the upland area. Nobody took any stumps out unless the stumps were pulled out of the ground by a storm. That's the only stump that was removed. Those stumps are still there. There's no stumps that was taken down or any live trees in the wetlands at all. Never happened. Just to let you know.
What do you envision planting in the upland review area? Native grasses, plants?
I'm going to plant whatever's on that plan that Alexandra presented. In addition to that, I'm going to put the wetland boulders in. I mean,
Right.
those demarcations.
Are you talking about grass, manicured lawn, or
No.
native plantings?
Whatever wetland plants Alexandra has on there is what I'm going to do. Whether I put the pool in or not, those plants are going in.
Right.
Well, I think it's been pretty clear that the boulders are going in the upland review area, not in the wetlands. That was agreed to you previously. There's a planting plan that I'm looking on my screen that Mr. Hack, I don't know if you have, but you can go through that and go. He can look at it online, right?
We could add a wetland seed mix or a seed mix to the rest of it.
And so there's a planting plan there that's pretty well developed here as to what's going on. I don't think there's going to be manicured. There won't be manicured lawn. There will be what Rich terms.
There will not be manicured lawn. That's not allowed. I would ask Alex, maybe in addition to the planting, an appropriate native seed mix.
Alexandra, Mark, there are some vegetation. There's the vegetation which is growing there naturally and right now, so I don't see a reason to replace it. So obviously, we're going to be observing the wetland buffer and preserving in the way it is today, and adding the native shrubs and trees are shown on the plan.
Yeah, this planting plan, Mr. Hack, is available online in the EPC in the town's website in EPC, and it may be a little difficult to see on a laptop, but you can expand it once you call it up on the.
Now, I have a copy of it. I have a copy of it right here. I see the trees and the shrubs. I was wondering what's going to go in between the trees and the shrubs in terms of native grasses and other appropriate upland review plantings.
Well, in between, the design is that they're going to be distance for the full growth, so there will be 5 feet apart. So when they fully grown, they're going to fill in the area densely, so there's no planting anything in between.
Okay, so as long as we're clear that there's no manicured lawn going in the upland review buffer.
I think that's been made clear.
Good.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Hack?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your participation. Is there another member of the public that would like to speak on this application? Anybody else? Yep. Okay. Well, we thank the public's interaction for this. I guess what we should do now is to close the public hearing. Jim Millard, can I ask you to make a motion to close public hearing?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I think we've just worked through another example of why a good public hearing is a very positive part of our commission's efforts. I thank all the participants, but I make a motion, please, to make a motion for EPC application number 13-2021 regarding 4 Acres Road to move forward.
To close the public hearing, sir.
To close the public hearing. Thank you for the correction, Mr. Chairman.
There you go. Susan, may I have a second, please?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Without objection, so moved. The 1313 is, public hearing is now closed. Thank you, everybody, for participating for this.
Thank you.
We'll now be moving on to the next part of the agenda called agent approvals. There's no action necessary unless the commission receives an appeal of the approval within 15 days of the publication date per section 12.2 of the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Regulations. The first application is EPC 23-2021, James and Leanne Hamilton, 40 Swifts Lane, proposing construction in an upland review area related to a pool and patio construction. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 50 as lot number 8. Is there anybody that would like to have any comments or questions for Rich? Nope. Good. Moving on. EPC 24-2021, John and Ellis Whipple, 50 Hanson Road, proposing a house addition in an upland review area. The site is shown on Assessor's Map number 9 as lot number 110. Anybody have any questions or comments for Rich? Nothing on 50 Hanson. Okay. Other business, discussion of stormwater management and system management on residential properties. Mr. Urban, when you're ready, we know you've been taking courses on this. We'd love to hear what you have to say. So please let me or Rich know when you. Oh yeah, that's right. We can meet in town hall now. The subcommittee we formed. That's right.
Oh,
that's
good.
right. Oh, good. Yeah. So Jim, you're in Darien.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then we'll try to establish something next week then to get together.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Everybody got the minutes of May 5th, 2021.
I did.
Any questions or comments? Nope.
I sent some comments to Rich.
Yep, good. Yes. Jim, I have a motion to approve the minutes.
I would like to approve the minutes from our prior meeting of the Environmental Protection Commission as revised by our fellow commissioners.
Great. Susan, may I have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you very much. Without objection, so moved. Without objection, so moved.
Do you want to briefly discuss the public hearing item?
Oh, yeah. We want to go back over this public hearing here for a second.
The boulders are, can easily, that's important.
No, the boulders are done. Thank you, Bill, for making it from north to south. And there was a little confusion there because there was some work, we're going to put it in the wetlands to define the wetlands. And the answer is no, it's the upland review area along, it's the upland review area that's going to.
I don't think the engineer, I don't think Wayne or Alex were confused about where to put it.
Okay.
I know Mr. Hack was talking about the wetland, but it's the upland review area.
All right. I'd like
We don't
to.
demarcate upland review areas and wetlands.
No.
I don't want somebody carrying boulders
And putting them into the wetlands. Absolutely not. Could you ask them to submit a revised, just to show the line of boulders? Because I want that as form of the building.
Yeah.
Building.
Well, technically the record's closed, but I guess.
You can ask them for it because they have to fill it in anyway. So, because I would like to get that to.
I guess you could.
Give Wayne a call. Tell him
Yeah.
that. Put a line of things in there.
I can make it a condition, but have it available sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, just to get that in. Bill, that was a great comment. Anybody have any thoughts on this? Bill, you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm a little confused. So the boulders are going to be in the upland review area, but just on the other side of the wetland area. Is that right? Or are we going to put them way up high?
No, the upland review area can, with the exception of the area that's being encroached on with the pool filling and grading, but the rest of the upland review area can be demarcated.
I like that, but I'm concerned whether that will really stick because it's so far up that you could easily have a lawn on the downward side of that, and then you're right back into the wetlands again in the future. He's saying no, but in the future. But if you had the boulders right along the wetland designated area, but a little bit into the review area, then in the future, the lawn can only go so far. I'm just concerned if the boulders are that high that they'll build on the other side a lawn one day. You know, all of a sudden these, I mean, we did get, everybody's agreeing there'll be no lawn there, which I guess we
Right.
have to write in there. If we write that.
Yeah, it's no different than areas you restore and demarcate. The boulders are as much a visual barrier, are they, as they're not necessarily a physical barrier, because you're right, someone could just lift a lawnmower over, I suppose. But we use them as a physical barrier once the area is established. And in this case, it never really lost its natural, a lot of the natural characteristics.
But if
enhance it, but no, you can stipulate in the future that entire 50-foot review area remain natural. And
I mean, I think that's phenomenal if we can get that to, because that's a huge area and.
Well, it
no
is
grass.
it is a good size area, but it's
Okay.
certainly not necessary. They still have lawn area.
They still have lawn area outside of
Outside
the
the review.
outside review area.
Okay,
So,
great.
we should be able to do that, Rich. You know, sit there and say, write that in as part of the condition.
Yeah, I mean, I think they offer.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Shea, the builder said so. If it was Wayne, it's one thing, but it was the builder that said that he agreed to
That's
it.
a good point.
You know, so at that point, he's on the record, okay, as stating it, and so I take the man at his word.
Yeah, and incidentally, it's not that small a lot. It's, I mean, an acre, a little over an acre is a decent size.
Yeah, it's a nice sized lot up
There's
there, yeah.
still, you know, if you subtract the wetland and the upland review area, there's still a
Yeah.
decent amount of land.
No, it's a nice wetland down there, and it should be protected. And I think we as a group are, you know, the more we can do to protect that is the better. Okay, so
Okay, great.
Anybody else?
Question. I was thinking of the aesthetics, understanding the physical buffer. We remember the Gorham Pond application where the neighbor went and dry stacked their own stone wall very close to the bank of Gorham Pond. And we concluded that even though they didn't have permission to do that, that it was a dry stacked stone wall. It was a little pony wall, that it was okay. Ultimately, it was okay. It didn't impact the wetland. What if Sean Shea said, "Hey, I don't want to look at ugly boulders. I want to have dry stack stone walls and maybe more elegant landscaping plan." Would
I'd be fine with that.
we be okay with that?
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. I mean, it's more common than not that you have formal landscaping that ends at the natural upland review area. And whether it's boulders or a wall, I have no problem. I mean, a fence isn't a natural thing. It's also a man-made object.
And then here's another question. There's a lot of municipalities, Massachusetts and other New England municipalities. I know we have this, I don't know if it's a tradition or one of our first asks is, hey, you're going to be doing filling and grading or digging a foundation, so you're going to have boulders, so let's armor the upland review area with boulders. What I've heard other municipalities do is mandate the surveyor install the removable marble monuments, and at the top of the monument is a special placard that I think is also, you can't just remove it, a specific wetland designation. Similarly, like I don't know if we have them here in Darien, you walk up to a sewer drain and it shows a picture of a fish that the sewer runs out into the ocean. We don't want you dumping in them. And I was thinking to myself, that's probably a more expensive exercise to have a surveyor install these monuments. These monuments are installed every 10 feet or 20, 15 feet. Is that just not where it works for other municipalities? It doesn't work for us because the perception is that the lawnmower is just going to go through and around those. You're still going to have vegetation that gets planted. I'm speaking out loud, thinking that, you know, as conservative as I am regarding protecting the wetland, sometimes I think, you know, big boulders isn't natural to a wetland, doesn't really look part of the wetland.
It's
And
not
it's still
part of the
worth it.
wetland, it's part of the upland
So,
review area. Hey, Michael, it's not part of the wetland. I don't think anybody here has said, well, the applicant basically said, yeah, we're gonna put boulders in the wetland. Nobody wants to put boulders in the wetland. We want to put it in the upland review area 50 feet away
I
from it.
meant to, correct, but the upland review area.
Well, monuments are typically used for easements, and you can't require an easement unless the applicant offers it, either reserved for, you know, much more serious impacts, you know, where you're getting an easement as an inducement to approve, you know, a significant impact. That's never been established here, and hasn't been required. So survey monuments, that's pretty much what they're used.
Okay. All right, just speaking out loud. That's it. That's all I got.
Okay. Appreciate it, Michael.
I think I got it.
You think you got it? Okay. I guess that's the end of our meeting. Nice, reasonably short meeting. Anyway, Jim Malone, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I'm happy to offer a recommendation to adjourn tonight's EPC meeting of June 2, 2021.
Great, thank you. Susan, may I have a second? Appreciate it, thank you. Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.